Test, test, test. Hello, hello, hello. Test, test, test. Hello, hello, hello. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Hello, hello, hello. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Hello, hello, hello. Test, test, test.
Initially, we're talking about using it as a way to do fitness classes through video. So especially with the Dow and downporting employees who work out with us when they're traveling. A lot of times they'll say, "Oh, I really like that class, but I'm traveling and I can't take the class." And so it's a way to be able to take the class.
And there's certain gyms that have, there's a program that, was it, one of my friends growing up bought a gym in Lansing. It's a chain, but they do have the rooms that have classes and they film them, and so they can be streamed wherever, or you can film them and play them in the gym. So they have the option.
Without the live instructor.
Without the live instructor, yeah.
Fitness on demand, but it wasn't their instructors.
Oh,
but their instructors were so bad that the ones on the screen were way better.
Like, have you seen, there's websites like Yoga Glow. You just get your $20 subscription and they have, I think they do live feeds and then they put them into the normal routine, but there's like hundreds and thousands of videos on there. Yeah.
I love Fitness Wonder because I just what workout I want to do.
And that's kind of like the technology now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm live right now. My wife said she can hear me. Just to be safe. Can't say anything now. I love my wife.
Hello and welcome to Greater Midland's first live streaming event. Today we are at Kehres Health and Chiropractic for their free health class. Without further ado, I present Dr. Dan Kehres.
Cool, thank you very much, and welcome to everybody who's in the class and everybody who's watching online. And so we're real excited to be partnered with the Midland Community Center, obviously. Just promoting health to the community. Our mission between me, Dr. Harpum, and our other physicians that work with us here at Kehres Health and everyone else who's partnered with the community center is to make the area healthier. And the way that we do that is through teaching classes, through what you guys do at the community center. And we've been doing this since we've been back, and it's one of the things we're very passionate about. Today we're talking about something that is something that has always been in my mind, and the way that I create classes is when I'm teaching another class, the questions that we have at the end of that class is something that I, go back and I make another class. Because when we have the same question asked over and over, I'm like, well, it's time to actually create a class. So tonight the class is going to be called Grains, the Real Truth. And so that's going to be the topic. And I want to welcome everybody, that's here. And I always like to congratulate people because you're taking time out of your schedule to come to the class, sit through here, and learn something new. And it's always important to take time out of your life to learn something new, whether you're trying to do it for your health, for your finances, for the relationships in your life. It's important to go out and get new information. So hopefully tonight we can give you some new information and teach you something new about a topic that maybe can help improve your life. And so the good thing about you guys is that you can't get up and run away because you're here. Well, you could. The people online, if you're not happy about what you're saying, then you can just shut the computer down and turn it off. So you guys are stuck with me, right? The bad thing is you guys can throw stuff, and so you cannot. And so that's the good and the bad of that. So tonight the class is going to be called Grains, the Real Truth. And really, my view on this topic is mold. I love to read books. I love to research. And research can only get you so far. So whatever you're reading in research can only get you so far. When you start working hands-on with people and you see how people actually respond, every single person's metabolism is different. Everybody's lifestyle is different. What they're doing on a regular basis, their mental stress, the way their body burns energy and responds to certain foods is completely different. So what I had a belief when it came to grains and different products and food, when I went into school and when I got out of school, I started working with people and I started doing classes. And since then, we've done hundreds of classes. We've worked with hundreds and if not thousands of people on nutrition. And when you start doing that, you really see people respond in different ways. And this is very powerful because when I started seeing how people responded, then we could start molding the things that they were doing and trying to get them healthier through changing their diet. And so this is something that I became very passionate about. And a lot of people would always ask, well, what about this type of grain? What about this type of grain? So I was like, you know what? We're going to put together a whole class on it and hopefully answer a lot of those questions along the way. So tonight the class is called Grains, the Real Truth. Now, the U.S. leads the way in a lot of good things, okay? We lead the way in a lot of different industries, and we have a very, very good emergency medicine system. When it comes to emergency medicine, if you get in an auto accident, we have a phenomenal system. Go to the hospital. If you have a heart attack, go to the hospital. We're very phenomenal at dealing with emergency situations. When it comes to chronic conditions, obesity, heart disease, diabetes, a lot of different types of cancer, we're not very good at working with those situations. And so it's led us into the point where we have a lot of problems. And the problem is not on this chart. You see the obesity, that the U.S. leads the world in obesity. That's not the problem. If being overweight had no side effects, nobody would care. But being overweight does have side effects. So as a chiropractor, what happens when you add on 20, 30, 40 pounds to the spine? What does it do to the spine and the joints and the hips and the knees and the ankles? It causes damage, right? If you pick up someone that's 40 pounds and you carry it around for a day, you're going to be pretty sore. And a lot of people are carrying around excess weight on a regular basis, and this takes a huge toll on their body. And so, different pounds and weight gains cause a lot of health issues. And so that's one of the big things that we're looking at. And if you're thinking about it, the U.S. leads the way in the world. Michigan is typically one of the top 5 states in the U.S. that have the highest obesity rates. So we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. And then in Michigan, I have an office in Saginaw, and then Dr. Harper and I are up here in Midland. There's 2 stats here. So Midland County, 30% obesity rate. Saginaw County, where our Saginaw office is the highest in the state. So Saginaw County is the highest in the state. So if you take a step back and you think about this, Saginaw County is the highest in the state of Michigan. Michigan is one of the top 5 in the U.S. The U.S. is the highest in the world. That puts us in a bubble of problems, right? And so that puts us in an area where we're kind of biased because we're in this bubble and we're just used to it. And everybody in here knows a lot of people who have health-related issues because of these problems. And so that's stuff we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, when you're trying to get healthy, there's a lot of different avenues. You can't just focus on one avenue. A lot of people are very good at going to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, but then when they get home, they're not putting the right types of foods in their body. Right? And they're like, well, I'm not gaining weight, so it doesn't really matter, but that food still has an impact on the inside of your body. And so it's very important not just to exercise properly, but also refuel with the proper foods so that your body can heal internally. And so tonight we're going to be talking about a nutritional aspect, but there's so many different nutritional aspects than just what we're talking about tonight. So that's just one piece of the puzzle. There's also the physical stress, not just your exercise routine, but if you're in chronic pain, if someone's in chronic pain, are they happy? No. So one, you're in chronic pain. Two, you're not happy, which also overflows into the mental aspect, because if you're not happy, your interactions with your family are not going to be very good either. And so physical stress is very important to remove that. Reducing mental stress is vitally important as well. One of my favorite things about mental stress is that anytime something happens to you, you can take a step back and say, I have the ability to respond to this situation how I want to, right? So if something happens to you, that's something crappy happens to you that you don't want, right? You can take a step back before you react and say, what do I want my attitude to be in this situation? And most people wouldn't say, I want my attitude to be crappy in this situation. They want to have a positive attitude. So mental stress is very important, and this is at the root of a lot of problems. Because if someone's mentally stressed out on a regular basis and they get home from work, what's the first thing they do? Yeah, they go find something and they eat. Probably some stuff that we're going to be talking about tonight. And so mental stress is a huge aspect. Chemical stress, a lot of our foods are made out of chemicals. They can take chemicals and they can make them look, feel, smell exactly like someone wants to crave, you know. And so chemicals are a big avenue here. So tonight we're going to be talking mostly about nutritional stress. But my point is, until you really focus on all these different avenues, it's hard to move in this direction. And so a lot of people are very good at one avenue, but when you start looking at these different avenues, it really moves you in this direction. And so that's one of the reasons we do all the different classes on basic nutrition, on grains, on immune system, on proper type of exercise, and everything that the community center offers as well, you know, is all inclusive in getting into this direction. And that's why the partnership is, I think, very effective, and the whole purpose of getting everybody together to make this community healthier is on track, because it's a very exciting thing. So what we're going to talk about tonight is grains, right? We all love grains. So we're going to go through a little bit and just do a real quick update and go through the history of grains, you know, get us from where we started to where we are now. And so let's kind of go back. If you walk into most doctor's office, even today, if you walk into most doctor's offices and you say, hey, can I get a nutritional protocol? One, a lot of medical doctors or DOs, if you talk to them, I have a lot of friends who are MDs and DOs. If you talk to them, how much nutritional education do they get in school? They don't get much, right? If any, and a lot of it's just going to be independent. And so they're not getting much, and they're focused, they're medical doctors, right? And so medication and surgery is typically their specialty. So they're great at dealing with those situations, but when it comes to nutrition, that might not be their focus. And so when you walk into most medical doctors' offices or your primary's office, a lot of times you ask them, what should I be eating on a regular basis? Now, the food pyramid is what came out in 1992. So this was the standard from the government, which was the food pyramid. And so if you walk into the doctor's office and you're looking for a nutritional recommendation, this is typically what you're going to get. Now, this is modified recently, and we'll talk about that, but this is what you're going to get. So what's the most important part of a pyramid? The foundation, right? Without a foundation in a pyramid, your pyramid's not going to be very successful, right? And so let's go through here. What's the pyramid on what's the base of the food pyramid look like? 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta. Grains, right? 6 to 11 servings of grains. This is the recommendation that they're giving to everybody, 1992 until just recently, and it hasn't changed too much. And then on top of that, they're going to say, you know, eat some vegetables and some fruit, you know, a little bit of milk and yogurt, and then on the top, fats. They're bad. They'll kill you, right? Stay away from the fats, right? Which we now know is completely untrue. Fats, you know, make up your hormones. Your brain's using a lot of fats, your cells, your nerves, everything is made from, a lot of these things are made from fat, so they're vital to your body. Now, the thing is you want to put in the right types of fats, right? And so we know that this already has some big red flags, that they're saying use fat sparingly, meat, poultry, and all this sort of stuff is going to be less than all the grains. And so this is where we were in 1992. So let's go up a little bit. And so here's the CDC's map I was talking about, where it shows Michigan leading the way, right? So this is the map of the rates of obesity. So the dark blue is 15 to 19% rate of obesity. Light blue is 10 to 14, and then the lighter one is under 10%. And so 1992, here we have Michigan, 15 to 19% rate of obesity. So the food pyramid was introduced in 1992. Obesity rates were less than 20%. And a lot of people say, well, today they just have better reporting. But what I say is go back to the point where you were in 1992. If you were in school, if you were at a job, think about the place around. I know exactly where I was, and I remember what the situation was. And the rate of obesity is not what it was today. And so 1992, Michigan, 15 to 19%. So here we go, 10 years later. Now 29 states have obesity rates of more than 20%. And so now we're actually starting to see a couple states that have obesity rates of 25 to 29%. And so in 10 years, we're seeing some substantial changes, right? And along with the increased rates of obesity are the increased rates of heart disease, different types of cancer, and all those type 2 diabetes, other things that are correlated with this. And so we're moving in the wrong direction very quickly. So here we go, 2010, and we're running out of colors. So now we're at the end of their original colors. So they're going to make more colors. The next one, I assume, is going to be black with the skull and crossbones, somewhere in there. And so Michigan, here we go, is again on the map. And so we're moving in the wrong direction, right? Something's going wrong, because until recent epidemic of weight problems. You go back 100 years, it just was not an epidemic like it is now. And so in our lifetime, we've literally seen this. Everybody in here has probably seen this transition happen. And so that's one of the big things you want to be aware of. And so what we're kind of talking about tonight is if you want to eat like the food pyramid, this is what I'm going to promote. You're going to look like the food pyramid, all right? And that's not what we want. And so what we're going to be talking about is modifying your nutrition and your diet to get it, moving in the right direction. I'm going to go through a few different reasons for this. And so now Michelle Obama got involved in the picture, and she started making some changes, okay? And so they took the food pyramid, and now they made it into myplate.gov. So they've changed it. And so they went from the base of the pyramid to a quarter of the plate, which is a huge change, right? This is a huge change in the right direction. But what's the problem? What are two of the most subsidized crops in the U.S. that has lots and lots of money behind it? Yes, exactly. Grains and dairy, but what, wheat and corn? Two hugely subsidized products. Then you walk into the grocery store, pretty much every product that you pick up has these things in them, right? And so there's a lot of money involved in this cycle, and that's a whole another class that you could talk about in that. But the transition is going in the right direction. And so this is a good change in the right direction. Now, what we're going to be talking about tonight is going to be switching and removing a lot more of those grains and moving to a plate that's more vegetables, fat, fruit, and protein. They don't even have fat. They eliminated it from the plate. So now our brain's not functioning, our hormones aren't functioning. And so there's a lot of problems happening here. And so at least they're taking a step in the right direction. So we're happy that they're doing that. Now, this is what we're going to propose, removing a lot of these. And before I talk about removing, the rule that we always talk about in our office is the 80-20 rule, okay? So the 80-20 rule is 80% of the time eat healthy, have healthy foods in your house and that sort of stuff. The 20% is enjoy snacks and enjoy foods that you like once in a while. A lot of people are backwards, they're 20-80, so 20% of the time they're having a little salad with their burger and their beer, right? And so we want to flip that. And if you're at a celebration, if you're at an event, you're at a party, enjoy foods, right? I'm never telling you if you eat a certain food, I'm never going to tell you not to eat that food. Just be smart about it. And a lot of times when people start eating healthy, they start to realize how foods affect them, and they start eating less and less of those foods. And so I'm going to explain that here in a couple of minutes. But the point is, I'm going to go through a few reasons why grains are causing a lot of problems with people, especially with the weight epidemic and the weight problem that we're seeing. And so vegetables, protein, fat, and fruit. Now, this plate is going to vary for everybody. Like my wife and I have completely different metabolisms. We have different exercise routines. So I like to, do more interval training and heavy lifting, where she does more of a yoga and that sort of stuff. That's the stuff that she likes. And so she does a lot better with more fruit and vegetables in there, and I do better with more protein and less fruit and vegetables. And so that's just the way we work. And so everybody in this room, depending on your lifestyle, depending on your exercise routine, is going to require a different amount. And so I can't tell you specifically that everybody needs to eat this way. Everybody needs to modify for them. Some people just know they do better off a little bit more fruits and vegetables than they do protein, right? And so there's no one-size-fits-all plate, and that's also the problem with this. This is a one-size-fits-all plate, and that's just not true. So inflammation. Now, what is inflammation? Can anybody answer that for me? If I go out for a run and I roll my ankle, what's going to happen? It's going to swell up, right? And so what's the purpose of that swelling? The purpose of the swelling is to heal, right? And so if I go out and I run and I roll my ankle is going to swell up. Now that swelling is serving a purpose. It's breaking down the scar tissue, it's getting all the damage out of there, and it's repairing the muscles and the ligaments and whatever else needs to be repaired, right? And so that swelling could be in there for 2 or 3 days to maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but then that swelling should go away, okay? That's a normal cycle. If you injure something, it should naturally heal. Now, what would happen if I went and I rolled my ankle and that swelling stayed there for 6 months or 8 months or a year or 2 years? That's a huge problem, right? If my ankle's staying swollen for a few years. Now, that means that there would be excess inflammation in the body, and the inflammation is not doing what it's supposed to. And so when you sit down to have a meal, this meal does one of two things to you. It either increases the inflammation in your body, or it decreases the inflammation in your body, okay? And so this is pretty black and white for me. And so when I was in high school, I had a sports injury. I had 2 major surgeries on my knee, my ACL, LCL, MCL, meniscuses, everything pretty much repaired. And so I have a lot of scar tissue in my leg. And so from a very young age, I started to realize that foods that I put in my body either made my knee hurt or they made it feel better. And so if I fall off track with my eating, after 2 or 3 days, my knee starts to bother me and it starts flaring up. So that's my little, that's my little gauge. And so that's really what got me interested in doing this. And that's really what got me interested in biochemistry and metabolism and nutrition from a very young age. And that's why I loved studying that in college and all through chiropractic school. But the point is, every time you sit down to have a meal, it's either going to increase the swelling and inflammation in your body, or it's going to decrease the swelling and inflammation in your body. Now, the simple answer is, which way do you want to go? You want to decrease the inflammation and swelling in your body, right? It just makes sense. And so for me, when people start talking about nutrition, I just look at a food and say, well, when you break it down, does that food increase the inflammation and swelling in your body, or does it decrease? And if it decreases it, that's a good food. If it increases it, that's probably not a good food. And so what are some inflammatory conditions? We'll let these kind of slide through here, but if you add itis to anything, itis simply means inflammation of that organ or that joint, right? So let's say you go into your doctor's office and you go, wow, I have a really bad pain here, and they do a scan, they maybe do a Doppler, they do something, and they find that you have inflammation of your gallbladder. What do they call it? Cholecystitis. Or maybe you go in, you say, well, my stomach's really bothering me. They do a scope and they go, you have inflammation of your diverticulum, diverticulitis. Or you have inflammation of your pancreas, pancreatitis. You have inflammation of your thyroid, thyroiditis. You can go through any organ and you can add itis to it, and it means inflammation. But if you take a step back and you ask them, why do I have inflammation of this organ? Do they know? In most cases, they don't, right? But if you take a step back and you think, the foods that I'm putting in my body increase inflammation or they decrease inflammation, maybe the foods that I'm putting in my body that increase inflammation could be causing my cholecystitis or my diverticulitis. And so that's one of the big problems with our medical system. They're not taking a step back and getting to the root of the problem. And so nutrition should always, always, always be the first line of defense when trying to get someone healthy. And so everybody in here knows someone with a condition on here, right? Maybe some of you have some of these conditions, but the point is, these conditions are very, very prevalent, from the different types of cancer to heart disease. Heart disease, for a long time, they're blaming it on cholesterol. But cholesterol is very important. Our hormones, our bile acids, our digestive vitamin D3 is made from cholesterol. So cholesterol is not the problem. It's the inflammation that gets inside the arteries, causes scarring of the arteries. And then when there's scarring in the arteries, what happens is the cholesterol comes through doing its job, gets stuck in the scar. Now you have plaque buildup. And that's the problem. And so the root of a lot of these problems on here is going to be inflammation. So we need to take a step back and go, well, what's creating the inflammation in our body? And so we come to our class, right? And so grains. Now, are grains the only thing that creates inflammation in the body? No, there's some other things in the body that create inflammation, but grains are one of the biggest things that create inflammation, okay? And from a lot of different avenues. But for the most basic avenue, let's talk about inflammation, okay? So let's first talk about tortilla chips. Does anyone in here like tortilla chips? Can anyone in here sit down and eat 20 of these? If you don't raise your hand, you're lying, right? Yeah. And so in the body, to have a balanced level of inflammation, you want to have a 1-to-1 ratio of good fats to bad fats, okay? In nature, a 1-to-1 ratio is going to be the ideal ratio, all right? So what's an example of a good fat? It's something that people recommend from supplementation. You get it in fish, omega-3s, right? EPA, DHA, omega-3s, fish oil. It's all the same thing. It's going to be in the same category. So that's an omega-3 fat, right? And so those are considered the good fat. Omega-3s are considered the good fat. And the bad fats are considered the omega-6s. And those are coming from your vegetable oil, your hydrogenated oil, the cottonseed oil, all the oils that are found in these things, right? They're going to be coming along with grains. Corn oil, you know, the processed grains have these bad oils in them. And so in nature, you want to have a 1-to-1 ratio of good fats to bad fats. So this tortilla chip right here has 1 gram of bad fat, 1 gram of vegetable oil. So if you sit down and eat 20 of these, I just answered your question for you, right? So if you sit down and eat 25 of these, if you sit down and eat 25 of these chips, how many grams of bad fat are you getting? 25. So to balance out that ratio, how many grams of fish oil would you have to take? Would anyone in here in their right mind take 25 grams of fish oil? So here's 1 gram. 25 of these. You'd be taking half a bottle, right? And that would balance out your ratio. That would be a 1-to-1 ratio. But what's an easier option than taking 25 grams of fish oil? Eating less of these, right? And it's not just tortilla chips. It's the breads, the grains, the pastas, the rice, and all that sort of stuff. And so we've got the pasta, we've got the crackers, the bagels, all the good stuff. When you walk into a grocery store and you walk down the center aisles, it's pretty much all the stuff that's going to be in the package, right? It's going to come with that inflammatory imbalance of oils. And that's just one of the first things that we're looking at. And so what causes inflammation? These things cause inflammation. And so literally when you go and you start eating these things, it can increase the inflammation that's in your body. Now, everybody is susceptible to a different level of this. So some people, they can go out and they can eat a lot of it and they don't really notice it. But it does not mean that it's not doing something else inside your body, all right? From a digestive standpoint, a lot of people have digestive issues, which we're going to talk about next. So what's the risk of eating grains in general? So the first thing is grains damage the stomach lining. So when you're eating food, the whole purpose of eating food is to digest it, break it down, and get the nutrients into your cells, right? For energy and for repair, your hair, your skin, your eyes, your organs. That's the whole purpose of eating food. So it gets into your stomach and digests it. Now, grains create a few different issues. There's a molecule in grains called zonulin that goes into the stomach lining. So the stomach lining should be a very good lining, and it should not let anything through the stomach into the rest of your body. Okay? Everything that goes in your stomach, you want it to stay in your stomach, right? You don't want it leaking out into your body, right? But this molecule called zonulin in grains, what it does is it actually loosens up the tight junctions in your stomach, and so the stomach starts to have little holes in it. And so you've heard of the syndrome, leaky gut syndrome, and that sort of stuff. So when you eat, let's say, a piece of chicken, and that chicken stays in your stomach, and it gets digested through properly, you don't have any issues, right? You digest it, you break it down, you're getting the fats and the proteins, and you're using those for nutrients. But what happens when you eat a piece of chicken, and since you've been eating grains as well, that's creating damage to your stomach lining, and now there's these little holes in your stomach, and little molecules from the chicken leak out of your stomach. What happens when something is in your body, in a certain area of your body that's not supposed to be there? What does your body do? It sets off the emergency signal, says, woo, woo, right? Because this piece of chicken is not supposed to be here. It's supposed to be in your stomach, right? This is a huge red flag to your body. So what does it do? It attacks it. Now that attacking is inflammation. That's swelling, right? And so that's where a lot of side effects come from. When people are eating things and they are not being digested properly, it's leaking through the stomach, the body starts attacking it. And it creates inflammation in different parts of the body that shouldn't even have inflammation in the first place. That's what we call itis, right? And if it's in the stomach, that's where all the digestive issues come from. Now, when we're doing consults in the office, it's probably 60 to 70 people have digestive issues. And the number is probably even higher than that. I bet you it's 70 to 80% of the US population has digestive issues on a regular basis. And so what's the big thing? 80% of our immune systems are found in our stomach. Many times when you feel like you're getting sick, what's one of the first signs that you notice? Oh, my stomach just hasn't been feeling right for the last day or two. That's a big red flag that you're about to get sick. So if your stomach has 80% of your immune function, if you're putting something in your body that's damaging your stomach, that can't be a good thing, right? And so you got to take a step back and think about that. Stomach damage can equal overall health damage. Therefore, grains, which have these molecules that can damage the stomach lining, can create other issues, not just with your immune system, but it can create autoimmune issues. So autoimmune issues are the different itises. A lot of rheumatoid arthritis is from autoimmune. A lot of the root of fibromyalgia, where people have pain kind of all over their body, it just means their body's kind of attacking itself. And that makes you very uncomfortable. That makes pain all over your body. Now, gluten's a buzzword, right? This is a marketing term. They use it for advertising. Gluten does create a lot of issues, but gluten is only one of 300 different molecules very similar to it. Research has only been focused on gluten in grains. So there's 300 other molecules very similar to gluten. There's one called WGA, which is actually very, very similar, but there's almost very little research out there. There's a little bit of research coming out, which is, where they found that it's also a huge issue. But gluten comes from the Latin word for glue, right? And so gluten has a high affinity for other things. It's very sticky. And so you think of the old pizza joints where they're making the dough, and they take the pizza dough and they throw it up in the air, and the pizza kind of expands and comes together. That's gluten at its finest, right? Gluten is getting everything and it's pulling it back together. So that's where gluten is going to be used in baking. And it's very popular in baking because people like that texture. They like the bagels and the bread that you have to kind of pull apart, right? That's the good stuff. And so it's a type of protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. Those highly subsidized crops, right? And so wheat, barley, and rye. Now, gluten intolerant people, so the people who are very gluten intolerant, these are some of the side effects that they have. Digestive issues from diarrhea, constipation, nausea, abdominal pain, cramps, inflammation. Now, a lot of people have these to a very minor extent. If someone is gluten intolerant or have celiac disease, very severe, they know it, right? There's no denying it. But a lot of people have some of these on a regular basis that they kind of just push off as being normal, right? So when I'm doing consults, a lot of people say, well, I have digestive issues, but, it's just a few times a week. A few times a week, that's not normal to have digestive issues a few times a week. And so this is kind of what's happening in there. Now, gluten has a high affinity in a lab setting. If you want to isolate like a magnesium or an iron or a zinc or some sort of metal, you can actually add in a form of gluten in there, and it has a high affinity for these. And so a lab setting, it's going to pull those out, and then you can isolate these in a lab setting. So what do you think is going to happen if you're putting this in your mouth and it's going through your digestive tract mixed with other foods that maybe you're eating? Let's say you're trying to eat a lot of healthy greens that have a high content of magnesium and all these other vitamins, or something that has iron or whatever. What's that grain going to do when it gets into your digestive tract and it starts mixing with those? It's going to grab onto them, and then it's going to be eliminated. So maybe you're putting a lot of good stuff in, but this is removing a lot of that. And so what does that sound like? What happens if you're low in iron? You're anemic. When they do blood drives, they come in, they test your blood level, and usually probably only 40 to 50% of people can actually donate blood, because a lot of those other people are actually anemic. And so if you get to the root of the problem, being anemic is very, very prevalent. Osteoporosis in the US is very prevalent. A lot of people say, well, we eat so much calcium, right? Everything has calcium in it. I remember I was out in Mexico, and we were on this little guide out by the pyramids, and we're going to the cenotes and stuff. And this guy is from Tulum, this little native of Tulum. He spoke very little English. He goes, it's very funny that people in the U.S. eat all the calcium, but you also have the highest rates of osteoporosis. He's like, there's got to be a mix-up here, right? Because people think that eating more calcium is always going to make your bones stronger. But if you're putting something in that's getting removed by other products, it's going to create issues like osteoporosis. And so there's a lot of problems that come along with this. Now, what's the difference from 100 years ago with our grain products to today? I mean, what has happened with the farming industry? It's higher processed. There's also the thing called genetically modified, right? And so if the demand is having more gluten in a product to give it that better consistency in the bagels and the pizza and the bread and all the good stuff, right? If the demand is having more gluten in there, what do you think they can do on the other end to increase the amount of gluten? straight from the field, right? They can make products that have more gluten. So if someone was eating the same products 100 years ago, they wouldn't have had as many digestive issues. And the rate of gluten intolerance, the rate of celiacs and digestive issues is going up and up. And so a lot of that can be tracked back to the amount that's actually being grown in the field. And so this is becoming a huge issue with a lot of people. And a lot of people, they might not notice any difference. So meet microvilli. So microvilli, on the inside of your stomach, microvilli are these little finger-like tentacles on the inside of your stomach. Now, when you put food inside your stomach, it needs to be broken down like we're talking about before. It's broken down for all the nutrients and the enzymes and all the protein and the fats to be absorbed into your body for health, right? And so the more surface area that you have inside your stomach, the more ability you have to digest that food and break it down, right? So there's more spaces for that food to be absorbed, right? And so having long microvilli, think of the old shag carpet, right? The sweet shag carpet, the real long. So if I was walking through with my grains, my bowl of Chex Mix, and I dropped it on the shag carpet and I stepped on it, how hard of a time am I going to have getting all that out of there? Because it's going to get absorbed in, right? So for your digestive tract, it's a good thing to have these very long microvilli because that means that you can break down the food and it can be absorbed into your system very efficiently. But one of the problems with grains that they found in research is that people who are more severely celiac tolerant, have celiacs and gluten intolerance and these digestive issues, is that their microvilli are not like this, but it's like the tight-knit carpet, right? And so now you don't have much surface area to digest food. And so if you don't have that surface area to break down and digest food, what happens to it? Goes right through your body, right? It's going right through your body, and you're not absorbing the nutrients. And so how do your organs and your skin and your hair and your eyes and your pancreas, how do all those things regenerate how they're supposed to? They're not. And so a lot of people start having these issues because they're not digesting these. And this is one of the big things with aging as well. As people get older, their digestive system gets worn down and it does not function as properly. And so now they start having cataracts, they now start having other issues with their skin. And so they're not getting the nutrients they need. So the root of the problem, a lot of these things is the digestive tract. Putting things into your stomach that heal your stomach and make it function properly. This is one of the best things that you can do. And so grains wear down these microvilli, which is not a good thing. It can heal itself. And research is semi-inconclusive, but they know that nerves can regenerate. And they also think that microvilli can also start to regenerate. But what do you have to do? You have to get rid of the cause, right? And so if you never get rid of the cause, you're never going to move in the right direction. So if I was trying to figure out why my thumb is swollen, and I go into work every single day and I get my thumb caught in the drawer at work, and I smash my thumb in the drawer at work, and my thumb is swollen, I go, well, why is my thumb swollen? And the next day I go into work and I slam my thumb in the drawer and I go, my thumb is just not going away. It's not getting, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in the doctor's office. I go, hey, doc, my thumb is swollen. What can we do? He goes, well, here's a pain medication. All right. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a medication. And I go into work the next day, slam my thumb in the drawer and go, my thumb is still swollen. I go back to the doctor's office. Do you have an ointment that I can put on my finger? All right, here's an ointment. Next day I go into work, slam my thumb in the drawer. It's still swollen. What's the only way that thumb's going to stop being swollen? Stop slamming the thumb in the drawer, right? And the same thing is with our health. You got to stop putting the things in your body that create the problems. Until you stop putting the things in your body that create the problems, you're not going to get to where you want to be. And so that's the only way that you're going to give the chance, the digestive tract and everything, the chance to heal. So gluten intolerant people, like I said, have these worn out microvilli. So grains are also broken down into sugar. So very quickly. And so grains equal sugar. Any processed carbohydrate, within 4 or 5 seconds, amylase in your mouth is an enzyme. It's breaking these things down directly into sugar. Your body does not care what's put in, to your body. It's always going to break it down to the simplest product. All right. And so grains equal sugar. And so this right up here says wheat may actually, no, not may, wheat actually absorbs into your body faster than table sugar. You read that? Wheat actually absorbs into your body faster than table sugar. Does that catch a lot of people off guard? Wait, wheat absorbs into your body faster than table sugar. So the problem is anything that absorbs into your body and your bloodstream very fast, what does it do? It spikes your blood sugar. So blood sugar goes up, then what happens? Woo, down. And then what happens when it goes down? You're like, whew, I need to pick me up. And so you go after something that's going to spike your blood sugar again. So it goes up again. You're like, all right, cloud 9, and then boom. That's what happens after lunch. That's what happens at, mid-morning snack for a lot of people. And so a lot of people, their blood sugar is like this, up and down and up and down. It's doing that all day. That creates a lot of damage to the body. So eating foods on a regular basis that are going to give your blood sugar a nice level throughout the day that keeps your energy up, keeps your cells, getting the right amount of sugar on a regular basis, that's what we want. So this is the original glycemic index, the very original glycemic index that was made, okay? When they check to see how fast things absorb into the body. So at the top of this, we have whole wheat bread. But we're told whole wheat is healthy for us, right? It's above white bread, right? Whole wheat bread is absorbing into your body faster than white bread. Then we have table sugar at 59. So whole wheat, 72, white bread is 69. Now this is since modified, but it's still almost the same as white, right? Table sugar, 59. Snickers bar is 41. I'm going for a Snickers bar. And then you have down here, just for example, proteins, almost 0. Because the sugar content, so they're not going to be spiking and doing this. They're just going to be very stable with you. And so this is one of the biggest things. And what they found is there's actually an enzyme on wheat, especially whole wheat, the less processed it is from a whole wheat standpoint. This enzyme essentially is like it has a key to your cells, and it allows the whole wheat to be absorbed, the molecules in the wheat to be absorbed right into your cells. Now this creates a very acute spike in your blood sugar. And this is one of the biggest problems that they have. And it actually absorbs in there faster than pure sugar. And so this creates a lot of problems for people, but you go and you say, what should I eat on a regular basis? Whole wheat. You should eat whole wheat this, whole wheat that, whole wheat this. But it's completely untrue if you actually look at the science. The whole wheat is one of the big problems as well. And so if you would have asked me, this is one of those things before I got out into practice, when I was reading the research, and you'd go, well, the Ezekiel bread, it's stone ground, sprouted, steel cut, that sort of stuff. It's got to be healthier for you. It's a better option. And so I would read it in the research, and I had all this stuff in my mind. And research only gets you so far, right? You can read all the research in the world. You can sit in a room and read all the research in the world and think that you're the smartest person. But until you actually go and start interacting with people and saying, okay, let's actually try this on somebody. Because you can only, read so much about mice and rats and that sort of stuff in these studies. But when you start trying this on people and seeing how they respond, when I have the ability to work with hundreds of people with rheumatoid arthritis, with fibromyalgia, with diverticulitis, all the itises that we've been talking about, and you start making these changes and seeing them respond, that's the best. That's better than any research in the world, right? When you have someone sitting in front of you going, I've had digestive issues for 55 years, and after a month of changing my diet, they're gone. That was something that just happened about 3 weeks ago in our office. Okay? And it's something that we see on a regular basis. So this is something that is very, near and dear to our heart, because a lot of people will say, well, research says this, but research only gets you so far. And so a piece of bread will spike your blood sugar more than a candy bar or ice cream, right? And so why do farmers feed cows grains? To fatten them up, right? So they're feeding these cows grains to fatten them up. So they get them to move as little as possible, because exercise is bad for cows because you don't want them to lose weight. Move as little as possible. Eat as many processed carbohydrates, grains as possible, and it gets them as fat as possible. Now, what does that also sound like? Sounds like the U.S. population, right? I'm going to park in the closest spot to the front door. I'm going to go into work, and I'm going to sit there all day, get back in my car, drive home, sit on the couch, and watch Game of Thrones or watch this live stream, right? But now you're learning, right? And so, but the reality behind it, if you're putting something in the body that's not supposed to be there, because what are cows actually supposed to eat? Cows are supposed to eat grass. They're not supposed to eat grains. If you put grains into their system, they get sick. They get medications, and they get drugs. When you put the wrong things into our system, we get sick. We get medications, and we get drugs, right? But if they're eating grass, 80% of the time and only 20% of grain, they're going to be fine, right? That's why we love the 80-20 rule, because we're not telling you to eliminate everything from your life unless you have severe issues, but maybe be proactive with this to get them as big as fast as possible. So if it works with cows, I was actually reading something, and they said that the original food pyramid was actually based off of the nutritional protocol of what farmers were feeding cows. It's like there's just too many things that are wrong with the food pyramid from that standpoint. So like I said before, if you would have asked me when I was still in the research world and I hadn't been working with people, are there healthy whole grains? I would have said absolutely yes. And there's still people out there that are still in the research and they're saying yes, 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 but those aren't the people that are actually sitting down and doing consults with people. Those are the people that are doing all this stuff out in the community, like we have the experience with now. And all breads are also on shelves at room temperature. And so if any oil's at room temperature inside these processed breads, it's going to turn rancid. And so olive oil and all this sort of stuff, if it's actually heated and processed and put into breads, it turns rancid. And that's why you can't find olive oil in these products. And a lot of times if it says made with olive oil, it also has the vegetable oil, the corn oil, and all these other hydrogenated oils in there as well. And if you look at calorie for calorie, grains are actually very weak nutritional foods. If you look at the amount of nutrients in a blueberry or these powerful fruits or just protein in general, calorie for calorie, those things are powerhouses compared to grains. You're getting so much more nutrient density out of those things than others. And whole wheat actually spikes your blood sugar faster than white bread. And so that's my view on whole grains now, and I don't think it'll change. So how will I live without grains? Not saying you have to live without them, okay? It totally depends on your health. If you're exercising, your mental stress is good, your lifestyle is good, then I say go for the 80-20 rule. Maybe be crazy and be 75-25, whatever you want. It's your choice. But stick somewhere around that zone, because I do confidently believe that not a lot of health issues, a lot of neurological issues because of the effect on grains. Now, it's not that hard. A lot of people say there's no way I'd ever be able to remove these things from my diet. And I say, well, what did you eat for dinner? Like, well, I had chicken and vegetables and a salad and that sort of stuff. I'm like, well, you just had a dinner that essentially removed those. Why can't you recreate similar meals for lunch and for breakfast? It's not that hard, because how many meals do people eat on a regular basis? I think it's about 6 to 7 meals that people actually rotate through their lifestyle. So they're only eating 6 to 7 regular meals. How hard would it be to switch at least 80% of those meals over to healthier meals? That's just a choice. It's not that hard, but it's the people who say, I can't do it, that put themselves in the corner, and then they won't ever do it. Because if you say you can't, then you won't, right? And so it's just making those changes. And so a lot of times if you base your meals on healthy protein and healthy fat, the two most satisfying things to your body are going to be protein and fats. So if you're increasing the amount of healthy protein and healthy fat on a regular basis, then that's going to make you much, much more satisfied. So a lot of people come and say, I'm craving a lot of food on a regular basis. And I'm like, if you go and eat a full chicken breast, are you going to be starving after that? And they're like, well, if you're still hungry, eat another half of a chicken breast, right? That's going to fill you up. But if you sit down and eat a bag of potato chips, all you're going to do is sit down and eat more chips or crackers or something else. You're not, and that's one of the big things. And so if you take a step back and you think about the grains, it's very low. And so a lot of times when you have someone who has a weight problem, and so let's say someone is obese, right? And they're always eating food, wouldn't you look at someone and go, well, they're 80 pounds overweight and they're eating everything. They must be getting more than enough nutrients. But the brain is very smart, right? The brain is always going to give you cravings if you're not getting nutrients. And so if you're eating foods that don't have the right nutrients, maybe you need more magnesium. And if someone needs more magnesium, what's the body going to tell you to do? It's going to say, eat more food. So if you need more magnesium or iron, it's going to say, eat more food. And so you're going to eat more food, but if you're eating more potato chips and pasta and crackers that does not have the right amount of magnesium, your body's going to go, all right, that was great and all, but let's go ahead and eat more food. Let's eat some more food, right? And so you keep eating. And what happens with carbohydrates? Your body only utilizes so many of them as energy. And what does it do with excess carbohydrates? It stores them as fat. And so if you're trying to lose weight, the absolute best thing that you can do is put healthier carbohydrates in your body and then reduce them to a certain level. Everybody has different metabolism, but healthy protein, healthy fruits and vegetables. Now, a lot of people think that if you're removing grains, I hear this all the time. So if you're removing grains, you're going on a low carb diet. That's not necessarily true at all, right? Because what else are carbohydrates? There are these things called fruits and vegetables. If you're an avid exerciser and you're really exercising hard, or you're doing intervals, kind of the stuff that I like to do, I wouldn't do very well on a low carb diet, right? My level just goes. So where do I get my carbohydrates? Here, I love smoothies. I love shakes. I love that sort of stuff. Right before a workout, if I eat a banana, 20 to 25 grams of sugar in that banana, that gives me the little boost that I need to go through that. So it depends on what your goals are. If you're trying to exercise, you're trying to lose weight. So how I live, 80-20 rule. So here's a testimonial. This is a lady. She's in her 70s, mid-70s. She worked in the medical system. She had an itis, right? Rheumatoid arthritis her whole life. Started off as juvenile RA, turned into RA. She worked in the medical system, had been to every single doctor, this and that. She comes to our office for non-related back pain, right? She's got a lot of inflammation. Her back hurts. And so she comes in and she's talking about, you're a chiropractor, we're working with your back. And so I sat down and said, hey, have you ever tried, you have this other stuff going on. Have you ever tried changing your diet? She's like, oh, I've tried everything. It's like, have you ever tried actually removing grains for, at least a month? A lot of them. She's like, well, I'll give it a shot. She's like, it's not that hard to do. I do my own cooking. And so she did. And she said, first, what can I eat? And so instead of thinking, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat this, because if you say you can't, then you won't, right? She said, what can I eat? And so she looked, fresh fruits and vegetables, meat and fish, eggs and nuts, spices and herbs. So there's tons of stuff that she could eat. So she opened her mind to think about all these different meals. And so she made the change. And what do you know happened? The thing that she had her whole life, the rheumatoid arthritis, essentially disappeared within that first month. Right? Do you think she's pretty happy? Something that she thought she'd just have to live with the rest of her life. Here she is in her 70s, and then this condition is gone. Incredible, right? And so she has in here, I prefer to count my many blessings like my family and a lot less pain and see my glasses half full. And so we see things like that on a very, very regular basis. It's pretty cool. And a lot of people come to us just for back issues, and they start to realize, oh, okay, maybe there's more to making changes. So here's just a few examples of quick and easy meals. So you take an omelet. Omelets are very easy, and you can throw whatever you want. It's just essentially an eggshell that you can throw whatever you want into it, right? And so that's one of the wonderful things about an omelet. So there's some cilantro on there, and there's some avocado and chicken and tomatoes. So that's delicious. Soups are great. You can make broth, which is one of the very healthiest things for your digestive tract. And you can throw in healthy meats, avocado, whatever you want. So there's a lot of different ways to make that. Thai chicken wraps. After this chicken is pre-cooked, it literally takes less than 3 or 4 minutes to make Thai chicken wraps. Very, very simple. So we have those recipes on our website. Sweet potato scramble. Here's another one. Super easy. This is steamed broccoli. This is shredded sweet potato browned in a pan with eggs on top. It's delicious and it's easy, right? And so you don't have to make complex meals. If you want to make more complex meals, you're more than welcome. But I don't know about you guys, but I like quicker meals, right? I don't have an hour and a half, 2 hours to sit down and make a meal. If you can make these things, these are all very simple meals. And there's hundreds and hundreds of different types of meals out there. So if you're looking for different go-to meals, get online and do a little bit of research and find a few things that you like. And so everybody has these things that kind of hold them back. And so people say, if I give up grains, I just really like pancakes. I can't give up grains because I can't give up pancakes. What's the beautiful thing is that you can make pancakes with almond flour. You can make pancakes with sweet potatoes or bananas or coconut flour. They're delicious. You can make waffles. One client said, my problem is I just really like donuts. I just really like donuts. I was like, well, get online and see if you can make a recipe from donuts from these other things. She did, and she said it was delicious. And so that got her to fill those gaps, and it got her moving in the right direction and ultimately on to lose weight. So healthy protein. You have some sort of healthy protein pretty much at every meal. It's going to make you more satisfied, especially when you start removing a lot of these processed carbohydrates. A lot of people start having cravings. And so you need to replace those cravings with healthy proteins and a lot of other nutrient-dense foods. And I'll tell you right now, one of my favorite things in the world is shakes. So if you have a blender, you take a handful of berries, you take a handful of mixed greens, you can put whatever you want in there, some unsweetened almond milk, you blend it up, and it's delicious, right? So it's something that's very delicious, and you can eat that on a regular basis. And so I make shakes every day. So this is a very cool study here. It took 215 celiac patients, overweight, that had digestive issues. So these people, they knew they had gluten intolerance, they had wheat issues, they had problems in there. And they said, let's remove the wheat from your diet for 6 months, all right? And over those 6 months, they weren't exercising. They weren't doing anything else. They weren't taking any sort of medical weight loss, miracle diet pills. They were just removing the wheat from their diet. And after that 6 months, the average weight loss was 27.5 pounds. okay? And this is a stat that I've actually seen recreated in our office many, many times. People who come in, and I've actually had people in this exact class stand up and go, you know what? I've been doing this for almost 6 months, and I'm at 28 pounds, or I'm at 25 pounds, or I'm at 30 pounds. And they weren't even exercising. They were just making these nutritional changes. And so this is one of the most powerful things that they did. The only change they made was eliminating grains. And so it's very powerful. Now, what's the action plan? Now, the action plan would be, you know, you hear me up here, you're like, okay, this crazy chiropractor's up there talking about nutrition. I don't really care, but I kind of want to feel better. I want to lose some weight. And so I would say, just give it a shot, right? What do you have to lose by giving it a shot, right? Even if you're going in 80%, you don't have to do it 100%. You know, reduce and eliminate grains for 1 month. Just give it a shot and see. If you have issues, you know, make note of the different issues that you have. Maybe your back hurts you. Maybe your knees hurt you. Your shoulders hurt you. You wake up in the morning, you're just real stiff, right? So make note of those things. Keep a journal of how you feel when you reintroduce grains. Because a lot of people go through and they'll be like, you know, I eliminated them. And a lot of times they didn't. They kind of eliminated them. Then they reintroduced them. And like, I didn't really feel any different. But a lot of times if they actually keep a journal, and they go, well, I woke up, you know, this happens in our office a lot. People come in and they go, I woke up this morning, I felt miserable. You know, my low back hurt. I was like, well, did you exercise? Did you do something, bend or twist yesterday, something that might have irritated it? And they go, no, I didn't do anything. I was like, well, what did you eat yesterday? Well, I had, you know, pizza and beer for dinner or something like that, pasta. And then literally, it's fun to see this because the light goes off. And they're like, oh, yeah. And so then they start making correlations with how they feel. And it's not just physically. Think about mentally. There's certain days where people are just kind of like, I don't know, that just nothing's going right and they just don't feel right. Try to make that correlation back to the foods you're eating. And when people start making these correlations, because people have different sensitivities to foods. Everybody, like I said, is metabolism is different, and everybody's sensitivity is completely different to the foods that they're eating. So keep a journal and see how you feel when you're eating certain foods. This is very, very important. Now shop the perimeter of the grocery store. If you go down the middle aisle, what happens? It jumps in your cart, right? Especially if you're hungry. Don't shop hungry if you shop the perimeter of the grocery store. The other thing that we highly encourage is get to know your local farmers. You know, find your local farmers. Find the farmers market. Find the different places that are growing the vegetables and the fruits and that sort of stuff. And the people who have the local raised chickens. When you start creating this network, it makes it so much easier just to have these, you know, at your disposal. And if you have some friends that want to go in and buy a quarter of a grass-fed cow or chickens or whatever like that, then get access to those people. And so on our website, we also have some recipes. And online, if you type in like grain-free recipes, you're going to find, if you're trying to find a replacement for something, just go in and type in grain-free recipe for this or that, and you'll find replacements for that. And so, you know, there's a ton of different options. The biggest thing is you just can't say, I can't do it. If you say you can't do it, you won't. That is 100% sure. You just say, yes, I'm going to give it a shot, you know, and then just see how you feel. If you're exercising, see how you're performing on a regular basis. And a lot of times if you're, you know, trying to lose weight, you know, just keep an eye on not necessarily the scale, but look at the way your clothes fit and that sort of stuff. That's a great way to go about it. So, you know, I really just encourage you to give it a shot. You really have nothing to lose. Some of you are maybe, you know, don't have many health issues, but what about your spouse? Maybe they're dealing with something. What about your parents or your kids or your friend who has these different types of itises? Everybody in here knows somebody who has an itis. You know, we're in a world where it's just so prevalent. And sometimes we're just one tiny step away from making a huge impact on our health or some of our family, our friends' health. And it's so sad for us to see that these people can go through their whole life stuck in this medical system with just getting medications and drugs and surgery when all they potentially need is a lifestyle change. They need to get some exercise. They need to get some sunlight. They need to maybe make some modifications to their diet, removing some of the things that are causing inflammation and adding in some of the things that are making them healthy. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. You know, we're real excited to be doing this live stream with the Midland Community Center. We're very excited to be partnered, you know, with you guys and, you know, make the community a healthier place. And hopefully the live stream is reaching the Great Lakes Bay and even farther. I think we have some viewers all the way from out west in the part of the U.S. and maybe even down south towards Florida as well from that standpoint. So we'll kind of wrap it up there. Anyone any specific questions at this point? Yes.
So even oatmeal, quinoa, none of it.
So oatmeal, so those are the in-between things. So oatmeal, quinoa, and couscous. So quinoa is actually a seed. And so it's going to fall in, it was called, in the Incan culture, it's called Incan gold, right? And so they ate this, and they were eating everything else healthy. So they're eating quinoa on a regular basis, still a very healthy population. The problem is people are not just eating quinoa, they're eating quinoa along with everything else. And so those are all in-between things. And if people have digestive issues, a lot of times they have sensitivities to oatmeal, quinoa, and couscous as well. But it's definitely one of the in-between things. So some people, if they're trying to eliminate all the grains and they do a good job with that, then I have no problem with them doing a little bit of that here and there. You know, best thing I would say is kind of throw it into your 20% if you're doing it sporadically. You know, oatmeal, if you're eating it, it does get absorbed and digested pretty quickly. And so it can have a pretty good glycemic load and create a weight gain for some people. But it depends on your exercise level. I mean, you're a runner, right? So you're real active, you're burning a lot of energy. You can get away with a lot more than a lot of other people because your body's quickly burning it up from the cellular level. Yes? You have a question? I answered every question anybody has. I guess not.
Is rye worse or than usually you look at white bread as being the worst, then you go with whole grains, and I was wondering about the rye breads.
It's going to be right in the same category. So I'm not even going to say like necessarily, I would say from most standpoint, from a research standpoint, the whole grain is going to be right up there, and rye is going to be right in that category as well. Because like I said, it's not just going to be the gluten. There's other molecules that are very similar to gluten. And as research goes forward, they're going to find that a lot of these other molecules have digestive issues, create digestive issues. They create inflammation when they get in the body. When you break down those products, they have a very high concentration of omega-6s as well, which creates inflammation. So like I said from the beginning, when you sit down to eat something, it's kind of black or white. Is it inflammatory or is it not? If it's inflammatory, if I sit down and eat a lot of that, that's going to make my knee hurt. How can that be healthy for me? You know, that doesn't make sense. So I would say it's going to be in the same category. That's the hard part, right? You're looking at all the different grains in that category, and research is showing they all have different properties. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily address in this because we can kind of talk all night about the different properties of it. There's an inhibitory factor to grains that allows the phytates that don't allow other nutrients to be actually absorbed into the body, which is another problem. And then you can get into the whole product, the whole topic of the genetically modified. You can get into the pesticides and the chemicals and all that sort of stuff. And the cropping, if you're growing the same crops on the same piece of land over and over and over, how many nutrients are actually in that product? Yeah, and they're replacing it, but only with 3 when the soil requires over 50. But they know those 3 make the things look how they're supposed to look and taste kind of how they're supposed to taste, but they're still missing the other 47 plus nutrients in there. So there's
earlier they were talking about white breads are worse, so that as you move to the whole grains, the other grains there, that was even more healthier for you. But basically, one's worse than the other.
And so
White versus the other grains.
They're all going to be the same category. That's what I said before. If you would have asked me this before I actually started working with people, I'd have been like, no, those are going to be a better option for you. But I see people have problems with all of them. For sure, yeah. People who had been like, well, I went grain-free, but I did all the Ezekiel bread and like the rye bread. The problems didn't go away, and then they made the transition.
Any bread is going to be in that classification.
And yes, in my mind, yes. In my experience, it's going to be in the same, yeah.
The other thing you were talking about, too, is 100 years ago, what the obesity level was versus what it is now is you got to look at the style of work and the activity that people are engaging in now versus what they did a few years, even 50 years ago was more were working on farms, more was manual labor, more walking, more whatever. And now you've got the advent of computers where you're getting up, having breakfast, driving to work, sitting in front of the computer, having lunch in front of the computer.
You sound just like me, I think. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there's so many factors when it comes to that, and then the lack of sunshine, everything. I mean, it's just shown the more you sit, the lower your metabolism is. I mean, that's just no question about that. Yeah, there's so many factors that come into play. Exactly. But the people who had the farmers, they're doing that manual labor. How do you think their appetite was? Huge, right? Yeah.
Who lived to be 100.
Yeah.
Gristle off the pork chops.
So they're eating.
Now because of their activity level.
Sure.
And the amount of food that they eat, they always burn off. They eat complete meals.
Absolutely.
You know, which have protein and grains and vegetables.
Sure.
That they continue to burn that off, and that's what they needed in order to keep work, to be able to work on the farm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. Good deal. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you everyone for watching. And so we really appreciate it. And we'll have classes. We'll have a list of classes. I think through the community center, we have some listed online. And next class is going to be Nature's Nutrients. And when is that? May 5th. And so is that 6:30? Tuesday, May 5th at 6:30. So it'll be Nature's Nutrients. And it's going to be talking about getting your nutrients from nature. We're first and foremost, we're always an advocate of getting your nutrients from real food. And if you're not getting it from real food for whatever reason, then looking at different supplements. And so we have a handful of supplements that we think people would benefit from on a regular basis. And so we always encourage people getting those from the food. And if not, looking at these supplements. So that'll be our next topic to come.
Almost makes it sound when you were talking about the cows that you want us to go graze through the salad bar now.
West of there's a good place at the mall now, isn't there? What is it? Go Salads. There you go. Awesome.
I think you got to watch it with some of these, like Wendy's
We done?
salad and